Welcome to the Marketing Mentor Podcast with Ilise Benun, founder of marketing-mentor.com and author of 7 books, including The Creative Professional's Guide to Money. Since 2008, Ilise has been interviewing her clients and other successful professional creatives who are doing what it takes to stop the feast or famine syndrome, get better clients, and command the fees they deserve, and sharing the nuts and bolts of what they've learned so you can do it too. You can find more at marketing-mentor.com. And now, here's Ilise Benun.
There's been a ton of interest in package pricing lately, and lots of creative professionals buying the package pricing bundle in the Marketing Mentor online store and figuring out how to package their creative services. But there also seems to be some confusion between package pricing, tiered pricing, and productizing, which is the latest buzzword. That's why I reached out to Jason Blumer of Blumer CPAs, a coach for creative businesses, to see if we could sort out and clarify these strategies so you can use them to grow your business and gain more control over your life. That is the point from my perspective. This is Ilise Benun of marketing-mentor.com. And in this podcast interview with Jason Blumer, we go into detail about the latest pricing strategies used by creative firms and solopreneurs, including the elusive value-based pricing. Listen, then try it for yourself. Hello, Jason. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Ilise. I always like to hang out with you and talk about our new ideas that you and I have. So thanks for having me.
Of course. So I know who you are, but the people don't. So tell them who you are.
So I am Jason Blumer, and I own a financial firm, a CPA firm. I'm a CPA, and it's a virtual firm called Blumer CPAs. You can find us at blumercpas.com, which is BLUMER. CPAS. But over the past, probably since 2008, we've really made a focus to coach and lead creative agencies, so web design, marketing, and development agencies, in being more strategic about growing their business, but also, supporting their financial foundation. We have a number of CPAs that will do the financial part, the accounting, tax, payroll, and planning for them, while I go coach and consult with these agency owners. So that's us, basically.
And you're a Southern guy.
I am. Can you tell? I hail from South Carolina. So we have team all over the U.S., but I do work out of, an office above my garage in my house in South Carolina.
Beautiful.
Yep.
And, this financial aspect is really important, and not too many money people, I'll call you a money person,
okay.
Focus on the creative world. So I'm so glad that you do.
Yeah. Well, I've always been creative. People accuse me of not really being a CPA sometimes. So I don't know if I was ever cut out to be the CPA part. So that's why I like to coach, have a lot of meetings, and I talk a lot. So, and brainstorm and those kind of things. So I'm really probably more of a creative person than I am the money guy. So we've hired some money people to do some of that other stuff.
Excellent. And what I wanted to talk with you about today is pricing and a certain type of pricing. And my first question has to do with, I want to define our terms, because a lot of people have been packaging their services and then putting prices to those packages. But I think there's some confusion.
Yeah.
So the 3 terms I want to define are package pricing, tiered pricing, and then this jargon word, productizing your services. How do you distinguish between those 3?
Yeah, that's a good question. Some are kind of included in some of the others. So like when I think of package pricing, I basically think of somebody that's trying to boil down a lot of their most common and generalized services and put them in a package. Say these are the things I most often sell. It makes sense to put these in a package, put a price on them. So that's kind of what I think about packaging. Tiered pricing really sounds like options to me. So that's really like how you offer some prices. So there's going to be different offers. So as we're relating that to packaging, there might be 3 packages. So like our firm only value prices, and that means we always give 3 options to everything we do. And then productizing probably is the bigger umbrella that covers a lot of that, which is basically kind of a business strategy to move away from selling one service at a time to basically trying to package things and become a productized company, which probably means you're able to draft prices maybe on a monthly basis is what I would think somebody would want to go after if they're productizing, which kind of stabilizes your cash flow and things like that. So some of them are related and one seems to be an umbrella of the others. How do you define them? Is that how you kind of define those 3?
Similar yet different.
Okay.
I'll start from the third one, the idea of productizing. It sounds like you're saying something very different from what I'm saying, actually. My definition of it is that you're turning your services into a product that you can then essentially create a turnkey service and delegate to other people to do, and perhaps not do it yourself anymore, but essentially turn what you do into a product that can be sold over and over.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I like that one too. So I think as I think about it, I'm still thinking about offering the same types of services, but you're forming ebooks and courses and things like that actually may not need you to be personally involved anymore.
Exactly.
Whereas the way I was approaching it, I still have a team involved in the delivery of those services, but they're kind of called some kind of product or package. I think both of those make sense. I like how you reference that.
And I think we agree for the most part on what package pricing and tiered pricing is. But I think sometimes the confusion is that what's public and what's not so public.
Right.
Because when people think about package pricing, for some reason they immediately think I've got to put it on my website with prices.
Right.
And I always say, no, not necessarily. It's just good to, as you said, boil down the most common services that you offer into something so that you're not reinventing the wheel every time you have to do a proposal.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's somebody attempting to make their pricing process more efficient, easier. So I always compare things from a value pricing perspective. So value pricing is about pricing a client instead of a service. And so it's a hard model to price because I have to have a very long conversation, sometimes 2 or 3 with each individual client and fully handcraft each package and each price for that individual client and their specific needs. So that's hard. So I think it's easier if you can say, you know what, I'm going to stop selling anything anybody wants, and I'm going to create 3 or 4 packages and say, these are the only things you can buy from me. And it's an attempt to make my business model more simpler, more efficient, so that I can operate with a little bit of efficiency because we're a value pricing firm and that's not efficient at all.
Why not?
It
Tell us more.
Takes a lot of time to commit to that. But I like how you said, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, a lot of people have questions about value pricing and how it works. And I don't see a lot of people doing it.
It's really, really hard to do. It's a hard model to introduce. Probably the larger your company, the bigger your client base, the harder it is to implement into your company. So it's something easier to do when you're smaller and you grow into it because you build your processes around it as you grow as a company. So we've been doing it for so long. That's how we think. It's really the core of how our firm thinks, and that's fine. But it doesn't mean if you want to do pricing in a different way, it's bad. So to change value pricing, you might want to do something called fixed pricing, which might be similar to package pricing. Fixed pricing is where you've boiled things down into a package, and it's so boiled down, you want to offer that thing and that one thing to almost everybody, and so you can go ahead and affix a price to it. So that basically, no matter who comes to you, the price is the same depending on whatever package they pick. And that's like the opposite of how we do it. But it's not bad. It's just a different model of how to run your business, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of creative professionals resist anything that pigeonholes them and constrains them to a box, which a package of services does.
You're right. I agree.
So,
and they shouldn't necessarily, because a lot of changes we make are related to our own business model. And I say that, I'm using that word a lot, and that, the business model is a, kind of a hot topic nowadays, but it's basically really, the explanation of how your company, promises value, packages that value, and then delivers that value, and the part of the value that your business model captures in the form of a price. So that's really what a business model is. And there are complicated ones. There are easy ones. If yours is hard, you can make it easier. If it's easier, you can make it harder. Hopefully you have some reason why you want to do that. And pricing has a lot to do with how you change your business model. So for people who don't want to box themselves in, then you can ask, well, are you an inefficient organization? Maybe it's becoming hard for you to price and speak with every brand new client. Well, then you might want to, make your business model a little bit simpler. You could do that by packaging some things. Stop selling everything and only sell 4 packages of things. Put a price on those. And then you can actually delegate the pricing and the proposing function to a whole nother person in your company and kind of take yourself out of it, which may be what you want to do. Yeah, it becomes established. It's there's more boundaries around it, right? That's what we're doing. We're putting boxes around your packages. And then other people can just follow the rules. Here's the boxes, here's the boundaries, here are the prices. Hey, client, which of these 4 do you want? And you can teach somebody to do that.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, because it's your own business, you are also at liberty to make adjustments and modifications to your packages or tailor them. I often tell people that the package is there as a starting point for the conversation. And then if the client says, no, I don't need that, I need this, then you adapt the package.
Good point. Yeah. So instead of being so rigid, maybe you can define your packages to help you and your team know how best to serve, but you can break your own rules. I mean, if you have this, amazing client that comes to you and wants to pay you 4 times the money, break your package rule. Exactly. Offer them whatever they want to buy, right? That's totally fine. I agree.
Well, that's the other thing about, putting the prices on the website. If you do go in the direction of packages, do you have to put the prices up there too? Because a lot of people are afraid that if you've priced them too low and you get a prospect who's coming to the website and would pay double for what you've priced at $5,000, then you've just lost $5,000.
That's right. Yeah, and I think that's also a degree. Maybe it has a lot to do with where you see the future of this part of your company, this proposing pricing, this upfront part of what you're doing. If you're going to give that to somebody one day, so like another team member in your company, you might want to make it as simple as possible. And, putting the prices on the website is as simple as you can get. The client, without your involvement at all, can make purchasing decisions right there. So, like, at least you're good at productizing a lot of what you do. Well, you put your prices on there. It's what you do. You're giving that customer the opportunity to go ahead and make their purchasing decision without involving you. So obviously, if you didn't put any prices and you said, call me, you'd be having hundreds and hundreds of conversations with different people. Some you'd sell $15 to, some $30, and that's not efficient at all, and it's just not wise if you're productizing. So I think it just depends on what kind of complexity you're trying to eliminate, or possibly your value proposition. If you think your value is immensely high then you may not want to put prices on there because you think you could get double and triple sometimes, depending on the client, if your value is that strong in the marketplace. So I think, I mean, does it just totally depend?
Yes.
It seems like we're not giving any answers here.
So we're showing how complex it is.
Yeah.
And I will say that I've heard from someone on the client side that when they've seen packages being offered, especially with prices, it just is so transparent and makes them feel more relaxed about what they're buying into. So whether it's more or less than they were going to pay, they feel very comfortable knowing what it is they're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that totally works. You know, another thing I just thought about as we're, you know, like when I coach with agency owners, I'm always coaching them to constantly be raising their price. And it's not that we just want to stick it to the client more. I'm trying to get them to assess their value. Is your value increasing? And if so, then your prices always want to be following your value. And, you know, if you've published prices, you can't easily raise your prices. So if somebody says, hey, I want package B, it says it's $500 a month, sign me up. You're like, well, it's $1,000 a month. You know, you have to, like, publishing prices is a little bit restrictive. If you're a kind of organization that's always maturing, always growing, always assessing value, and always seeking to raise your price, then it does restrict you a little bit to publish your prices. But again, I think it just totally depends on where your organization is heading and why you want to head that way.
Agreed. Now, let's talk a little bit about tiered pricing.
Sure.
Because that's the one we haven't really covered too much. And I think, when we originally met and I brought you to speak at How Design Live a couple of years ago to talk about pricing, and you did talk about tiered pricing, and a couple people in the audience immediately, I mean, literally that day, responded to a client with 3 options, 3 tiers rather than one, and got the project.
Right.
And wrote about it for the blog.
That's right.
Remember that?
I do. That was really cool.
So that kind of started this tiered pricing idea, which is such a basic, simple idea. Like, why hadn't we been talking and thinking about it before then? I don't know. Right. But since then, this idea of even if or when the client says, how much is this going to cost? You don't have to give them just one price. You can give them several options. And I'd love to hear your rationale for that and why it makes sense. Yeah. But first, I want to tell you one thing. Sure. In one of the other conversations I had with a designer, she was telling me that when she tried it, it revolutionized her business. And she said that it allowed her to create the crazy package, what she called the crazy package, where she just gives everything that she could possibly offer, not assuming they're actually going to buy it. Yeah. But she's so happy to be able to add her crazy package.
Wow.
At the highest price, of course.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, it's been transformative. I think just, offering 3 options or tiered pricing, which is the same thing, is really a foundation to value pricing. And I think it really just changes the psychology of the things you're saying to your client. So when you come to them with one price, you're basically saying, this is it, take it or leave it. Though you don't say it that way, that's their options. But when you come to a client with 3 options, you're making some pretty strong statements. You're saying, I want to give you I've thought about you a lot. You asked for one thing. I'm going to give you 3 different things. And there's some of them you didn't ask for because you didn't know to ask for them because I'm the professional. And so it changes the mindset of the client, I believe. Instead of it's a take it or leave it, they're going, which package am I going to pick? And so that's a really different place that you have your client in. You want them in that situation. You want them thinking, which one am I going to pick instead of a take it or leave it. And I think the member you just mentioned, I think it also gives some freedom to the creative professional to kind of just make up some crazy stuff. And not only make up crazy stuff just for just to try to make up crazy stuff. But to really shoot the moon, like if I wanted to really transform this customer, how can I do it? And they don't have to worry about scaring the client off. They can do it in the high option and say, this one would really be a lot of fun. But the client has two other options they can go to if they don't like it. So it's a way for you to play around with your packaging. And I've heard sometimes the reverse is true. A lot of times, wise, creative professionals often want to price what the client said they need. But we always take the viewpoint that the client doesn't know what they need. So that's a foundational belief that I have. They actually can't know. How can they know, about web design and marketing if they're hiring you to do that? Now, maybe they know some of it, but they can't fully know everything you can do for them. So it just gives you an opportunity to show them all the things you could do for them that they never even knew to ask you for. They can't possibly know all the things that you do. So tiered pricing or options is a way to it's really another sales tool to display all the things that you can do. But some people find it a struggle. Trying to come up with 3 options when the client just asked for one really makes a lot of people struggle that own creative firms. And so you have to really teach them how to be creative and, to kind of pull some things out of their quiver, some arrows out of their quiver that they always throw into a high price or a high option. Because they sometimes struggle with being so creative, which is really weird since they're in the creative field, but it's true. So just depends on what you want.
One of the things I love about giving options, and you can give 2 options. If you're struggling with 3, then just give 2. 2 is certainly better than 1.
Yep.
But it really opens up a conversation about the differences between the options, which, again, you wouldn't have the opportunity for if you only give one option.
Good. Yes. So I think that's the concept of all prices are contextual prices, which, basically means we know what a jug of milk costs because we know what a BMW costs. We just know the world around us. And we know what is the right price for a jug of milk at the grocery store. And similar, if you give 3 options, a lot of times, instead of a client comparing your one option to a competitor, they're now comparing you to you. You're your own context. And that's a great place to be in. Again, they can approach those prices as which one will I pick? Instead of take it or leave it. They no longer have to go outside your organization to compare you to somebody else and say, is your price higher and do I get more for what you're offering compared to your competitor? They can do it with your own options. And I think that's beautiful.
Right. All right. Any final words on productizing, tiered pricing, or package pricing?
Yeah, I think I would say just understand pricing is an experimental thing. I like to teach people to always be reviewing their pricing, but it is experimental. So you're going to try things that don't work, and then you're going to change those things, and then you may try something that just is amazing. So I think just be okay with the experimental nature of pricing, because what you're doing is you're kind of putting feelers out right into your marketplace to say, is this what you need? Is this too high? Does this represent the value you're perceiving in what you're buying from me? And sometimes you don't know the answer unless you just experiment. So don't be afraid to do that. And I'd also like to say, as you're changing your pricing models, you're going to change how you bring in clients. So, if you go to full value pricing and all your prices triple, you're going to get less clients pretty immediately. That surprises some people, but just be open to know that the intake of clients or the speed of your sales process could greatly slow down as you change your pricing model, because you're kind of confusing a little bit of your marketplace, and a lot of times you have to go to a new set of customers to sell the new thing at the new level that you want to sell it. Your current client base may not be ready for what you want to do. So just know you have to change your whole client base, and that's just hard stuff, and it takes time. So pricing is experimental, takes a lot of time, and it will certainly affect your client base and how quickly they come into your company. So.
And maybe that's a good transition to the topic of a niche and the importance of a niche, as some
Oh
people
yeah,
call it, right?
that's right. Yeah, I call it a niche too. I'm from the South, so.
And I know that you have been writing and talking lately about your niche journey. So tell us about that. But first, tell us about how having a niche affects your pricing or one's pricing.
Oh wow, that's good. So a niche is very, very, very transformative to a company. Um, I think basically, here's what I believe. If you're deciding to niche, I think you're also deciding to say, I'm an expert. That's what I think you're doing. Because you're exclusively saying no to almost everybody, and you're agreeing to only say yes to one small group of clients. And if you're doing that, I think you're saying to them, or I think you should say to them, that you are the expert. And if you are claiming to be the expert, you must price in that way. You can't simultaneously claim to be an expert, but your prices be the same or less than your competitor. That's a generalist. So you can't do that, or you'll confuse your marketplace. So if you start niching, just know you're going to need to raise your prices pretty significantly, I feel, to reflect the things you're going to say in your content. You're going to start pushing out as an expert. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it also goes back to what you were saying about finding a new market, basically, because you can't necessarily raise your prices on the existing market. And that new market is your niche anyway.
Exactly.
And I think the trick there sometimes also is to determine if the niche market is viable and will be able to pay the expert.
Right. Good point. Good point. It's funny. That's a basic thing. I often forget to even tell people that. But the first thing you have to do is say, will your niche support expert prices? If you're going to claim to be an expert, do you have people that will purchase that at a higher price? And to answer that, you probably have to be able to say we offer something nobody else does, or we do have a very specific expertise that nobody else can offer. At least for you and I, it's coaching or consulting. That's the thing I say. Like a lot of people will come to me and say, I left the last CPA firm because they're expensive. And the amount they paid that firm 1 year is what I'll ask them to pay us monthly. And they'll be like, no, you didn't hear me. I said I left because they were expensive. But I know actually what they meant is they left because the money they were paying was not worth the value they were getting. And I can promise to them that our value is transformative. You'll actually be a different person, a different business owner. You'll make a lot more money. You'll know better what you're doing and why if you work with our firm. So we have to basically not let ourselves be put into the category of CPA firm, because that means something to a marketplace, and we're not that. We are some of that, where we're a lot more than that. So if you're gonna niche, you have to immediately begin creating content that really states very boldly, I am the expert. Come to me only for expertise, and expect prices to be high enough to support that kind of business model. Because it is true, if you are the expert, then you have to start hiring people that are also experts. And so now your costs are starting to get more expensive over time. So you need larger prices to fund a more expensive business model over time. And a lot of these things sneak up on people. They just think choosing a niche is really a great thing, and it is. But every kind of pricing change or business model change, like niching, it affects your clients. It affects the marketplace you're serving. So you just have to be aware of how it's affecting the people you serve. Some just can't purchase from you if you are claiming to be an expert. They just can't. And that's okay.
All right. All very useful, helpful information. Last question, Jason.
Sure.
Do you have any final words of advice for creatives who are struggling still with these pricing questions?
I think you do need coaching. I'm a big believer in a coach. So I think you need help to wade through this complexity. So I would say that, and I guess I would say it is a skill you have to learn. So it's pricing is hard. I mean, we're talking a lot about how it changes so many things. A lot of times changes things we don't expect for it to change. So I think, just give things like this time, try things. And if you are going to be experimental, don't experiment with your whole client base. Like if you're thinking, if you've got 100 clients and you want to move into a niche, try to price 2 of those that could perceive you as a high value offering. See if they'll pay more. Test it with a very small part of your client base before you change your whole company over. And then just do it over time. If those 2 will go with you, try another 2, then try 5, and then certainly try it with all brand new clients too. And eventually, after typically a year or 2, you can go change your website and say, okay, I am the expert I'm going to claim I am on my site. So you may move your client base and your pricing over first, and then change some of the statements you make on your website into the marketplace. Maybe that comes later. And that's okay.
So you're emphasizing the fact that it is a process.
It is. It's always a very long process. If you're a generalist now, which most people are, and you want to become a niche focused expert firm, depending on the size of your company and your client base and your team, it's going to take a year or 2 to get there. Certainly. And I would say, if you're brand new and you don't have any clients, start your niche now. You can't pick a niche too soon. I think you can decide on a niche too fast. You can niche too fast, possibly, but it's not too soon to start thinking about it. And I guess one other thought is there is an external piece to niching, so you can externally state high value things, even if internally your client base is still maybe an older client base that is a generalist type client base. As you're switching your client base over to a more high value expertise model, that might take a couple years, but you can change your website now and say, hey, I'm the expert that I hope to be one day. That's a bold move. While internally, you're still working with some older clients or legacy-based clients that are on older pricing models. And that's okay. Just understand what you're doing, that, some of your external statements don't really match just yet what you're doing internally, but that will change over time. So it's really confusing. It's a lot of business strategy and changing a pricing model. So get some help.
Actually, one more question, Jason.
Sure.
And this is something that came up with a client recently, because he was being asked essentially to do production work. And that's not what he wants. That's not what he's marketing for. That's not what he wants to grow with. But that's the work that's there. And it's relatively well-paying work.
Yeah.
And he imagines that everyone else is doing the cool work. And why do I have to do the bread and butter work? And I said to him, I don't think it's that way, actually. I think a lot of people have a very strong foundation of production-oriented, not very interesting work that they do, and that pays the bills. And then they go marketing for the cool stuff and the stuff that they enjoy. What is your take on that? What do you see?
I agree. Yeah. I mean, even in our firm, we want to offer a high value model, but I have CPAs doing tax returns. We have a payroll specialist doing payroll. I mean, these are some of the most generalized financial functions that companies need, but we're wrapping it in a high value wrapper with this coaching and consulting. So I guess I would say, if you want to become a niche and become an expert, that is an external positioning thing you're doing, right? That's a marketing effort. The statements you're making online and through your content. But internally, you can take a client for cash flow purposes, and that's okay. Actually, you should, right? I mean, you need to pay the bills. So, and especially if you're on a 2-year journey to become an expert in developing some niche that you think is important for your marketplace, be okay with taking cash flow clients, as we call them. People that are going to pay the bills, stuff you can do in your sleep, right? Stuff is easy for you, maybe. Be okay with taking that because you're paying the bills. Just know you're not going to do it forever, and know when you have to stop doing that, because there will be a point in time when you'll have to stop taking production work at production prices. But you can do it for a time. And I think it's a great way to support the move of your client base and your firm over to a high value firm, is to take some of those high paying production clients. And on the way, you can change a few things. Maybe you can stop doing some of the stuff you don't like. So get rid of that first. Some of the production stuff, go ahead and raise your prices on it so that less people buy it, but some people still do. So they're still funding your business model, and you're kind of moving towards that niche and that high value price. And then one day you may say, I won't take any more production work. I don't do print related work, and you drop it fully. But probably by then you've built such a high value client base that's paying you such high dollar that you can go ahead and just eliminate one line of service at that time. So I think that too is a journey. But yeah, I would say take the money. Take the money. That's how you build your business. You need cash flow.
And I mean, the other piece of that question is, with your hands in the businesses of so many different firms, what do you see? What percentage of work is bread and butter?
Well, I would say every one of our clients are doing something like that. Mm-hmm. They're doing a website. They're changing URLs and moving databases over from one site to, so they have a team that's doing those things. So probably every single one of them are doing it. But I would say that, the way the model of our firm works is they're all very, very high priced. So they're going to be, double and triple what other people are pricing their services at. So even though they're doing some of those basic services that maybe a freelancer could do, they're charging a lot of money for it. And in fact, some of them are charging a lot of money and using freelancers.
Right.
And so you might ask, well, how's that possible? Well, it's really because the owner is bold enough to say, I'm an expert and I require that you pay me double what you pay somebody else. It's really there's a level of courage that it takes to price high. And that's a hard thing to overcome. At least that a lot of creative people struggle with that specifically.
Right.
They really struggle with saying, I am the expert. I don't know what it is about this creative community. It's just something they really struggle with. But you do have to get there. You do have to say you are of high value, and you do have to say we can transform customers, because people will pay for transformation, I think. And that you just got to change your language sometimes. But that's an emotional hurdle you got to jump. And it is hard.
All right. This is all very beautiful. Jason, tell people where they can find you again.
So I do have a site, jasonblumer.com. And that's just a big compilation of all the things that I do, a couple ebooks there. And you can get a link to my podcast, The Businessology Show. Or my firm is blumercpas.com, and you can find me at any one of those places. So thanks, Ilise, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing what you know, Jason.
Sure.
Thanks so much to Jason Blumer of Blumer CPAs. You can find him online at blumercpas.com. That's BLUMERCPAS.com. Also at jasonblumer.com. And check out his podcast, The Businessology Show. This is Ilise Benun of marketing-mentor.com. And if you like what you hear and want more, sign up for quick tips from Marketing Mentor, and I'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening. Now go try out what you've learned. If you like what you hear, you can go to marketing-mentor.com and sign up for Ilise's quick tips from Marketing Mentor and her free 30-minute mentoring session to get your burning questions answered. Check out what's on sale in the Marketing Mentor Shop, like the Pick a Niche Kit, proposal bundles for designers and copywriters, and the 30 Minutes a Day marketing plan. Ilise is also the host of the How Design Live podcast, a programming partner for How Design Live, the largest design conference, and you can learn all about that at howdesignlive.com. Until next time.